Just close your eyes for a moment and imagine a motorcycle. Now, I bet for many of you, it was something like this. That's Kawasaki W800, the typical picture of a motorcycle. It's good looking and sturdy with an underwhelming riding experience. That's my overall impression of the W800. Without paying too much attention to these specs, let's see how it feels to ride and own the bike. The bike looks good. It's proportionate, and design elements like the round headlight, shape and size of the gas tank, and the stock seat all give the bike an old school and predictable shape. The bike is also symmetrical, not just because the wheels are of similar sizes, but also because of the exhaust pipes on both sides of the bike. There is minimal use of plastic, at least on what's visible from outside. I'm aware that this style of Japanese bikes is essentially a copy of British bikes of the 50s and 60s, but I don't hold that as a criticism for now. Some people might find the looks boring as it might be too predictable and typical of a motorcycle, but I think the bike looks good on decent eyes. Aside from the aesthetics, let's take a look at some of the useful features that makes the life of the owner easier. The bike has a stock center stand, and it's a huge help for the owner because it allows the owner to clean the chain, check the chain tension, check wheel alignment, bearings and other works on the wheels, remove the wheels, check the brake defects like frozen calipers, service the front forks and rear shocks, and do many other maintenance tasks. Yet, most bikes these days don't have a center stand. So this is one of the greatest stock features of the W800. Let's take a look at some other useful features. The bike has stock hand grips on the rear on both sides for moving the motorcycle in your garage and for a passenger to hold on to. As another example, you can easily open the seat with the key without needing an extra tool. The rear shocks are also easily adjustable with no special tool for when you want to have a passenger, or if you need softer or harder rear suspension for any other reason. These are some small things, but added together they literally make using the bike easier. Now let's take a look at how the bike feels when riding. Kawasaki claims it particularly tunes the exhaust sounds to be pleasurable. It seems right, at least for the W800. Just listen to the exhaust sound. It sounds good without being too loud. The bike also feels sturdy. You feel it when you move it or ride it. Once I dropped the bike hard on a concrete ground while push-starting it on a dead battery. At first I thought I damaged at least some body parts, if not bent the frame. But when I lifted up the bike, it was intact. I dropped other bikes in much more gentle ways, and it scratched and broke certain things on those bikes, but not on this one. Feeling sturdy might be because of the relatively heavy weight and the amount of metal parts used in the bike. The weight, together with the 800cc engine, might sound a bit daunting to beginners, but I think the bike is approachable for beginners. With relatively low seat height and center of gravity, both shorter and taller riders can comfortably ride it. The bike is strong enough for average users, but the throttle is still not too sensitive for beginners. So the bike is beginner friendly, but this also makes it too predictable to be exciting. Of course, the excitement element depends on the rider's experience and interest, and so can be subjective. It's very likely that you don't get bored with the bike in the first few months of ownership, or for some riders, the bike may never get boring. But for me, after some months of use, the bike felt too predictable and uninspiring. For example, you feel a lot of little high-frequency vibration in the handlebars and foot pegs. I'm not against vibration, but the vibration should be sweet. This wasn't sweet. This is particularly because of the parallel twin cylinders with the firing pattern of 360 degrees, which means both cylinders go up and down at the same time, just like the old British bikes. There are some other minor quirks. For example, when you're in the first gear, you can leave your right hand from the throttle because the bike moves with a low speed on the first gear on the minimum throttle setting. I tried to adjust the default throttle, but it didn't help. This might be useful for beginners, but a motorcycle should gasp for throttle if you leave the throttle for some time. This was the first bike that I could ride with low speed only with the left hand. The handling is also stiff, especially in curves. This may be because of the old school design of the bike and the relatively narrow stock handlebars. When riding faster than 50 miles per hour, you feel the incoming wind in your stomach too much. It might be because of the sitting position, as you would have to lean your torso forward a bit, and this would catch an air circulation in your stomach areas. To counter this wind pressure in higher speeds, you will have to grip the handlebars too hard. Not just because of the wind, but the engine and transmission do not allow faster speeds. The bike feels out of breath when riding faster than 50 miles per hour. It may be because of the gearbox setup or any other reason, but because of this and the wind, the bike is not suitable for highway speeds. Aside from the use, let's see what's wrong with the build quality. I'm usually very gentle when using my bikes, at least for the first few hundred miles if the bike is new. But it was about 200 miles when I noticed some very small amounts of oil leaking around the bevel drive in this area. This bevel drive system is a bit strange as it replaces timing chain and adds weight and complexity to the engine. And I'm not aware of the Kawasaki's rationale behind designing the engine this way. Also, it was around the same 200 miles that I recognized the exhaust pipes discolored near the cylinders. The discoloration was noticeable, and it really shouldn't happen after just 200 miles, especially with my gentle use. I never revved more than 4,000 RPM. Overall, I do recommend the W800 for riding in speeds slower than 50 miles per hour in town or in rural twisty roads. But for such uses, there are cheaper, lighter, and simpler options like the Yamaha V-Star 250 or Virago. So the only remaining reason for the W800 would be the old school looks. Here you see how I rate the bike in each criterion. And here's the overall consumer centricity rating for the W800.